Hi, my name is Rumana. Please stay tuned to Voice It Out podcast. Thank you.
Hi, this is Amrita with the Voice It Out podcast, and we are recording a bonus episode. So, no, you haven't stumbled upon a new season yet, but we are definitely coming with a new season. However, this is a bonus. So, today I have a very special guest with me. Her film, as her directorial debut, has actually opened up the UK Asian Film Festival 2024. It's Rumana Molla. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm very good, thank you. I'm so happy it's sunny.
Yes.
As I've got to say, that's one thing I've got to say, because normally when we record, we've been recording in the winter.
Yeah.
So we always talk about the weather first, actually. So I've gone with the right intro. But thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely, and it's been so amazing to see the reception that minimum your film, your directorial debut, has got at UCAF. What was that night like for you?
It was nothing short of magical. I really did not expect that kind of a reception. I didn't expect those reactions. Of course, you get a sense of how you show the film to a few people, so you get some reactions, but then it's very internal, right? You show it maybe to someone who's working on the film, and you don't always know if it's objective or not. But here I really got a sense of how people feel about the film. And it's not just about what they say to me afterwards, but because I was sitting there during the film, I heard the laughs, I saw people getting slightly emotional. So, you kind of feel like, oh, so this is what, because you lose track of that as well. I think after a point, I was so busy working on the film that I forgot that it's supposed to come out. I was just constantly busy thinking about the film and how to fix problems, I was actually nitpicking myself because I wanted to make sure that I see every problem before it's out there for everyone to see. So I think I was so busy in that process that I sometimes used to forget that it's supposed to come out there. And then, I just remembered, oh, this is what it's about. And it was beautiful.
That's so nice. I think because UCAF have this kind of, how do I say it, this theme of Asian filmmakers, I think it's so nice to actually see the films that are kind of in the female gaze sometimes, and sometimes they're not, obviously, as well. But obviously your film is about the tale of an immigrant, right? And as far as I've read, because unfortunately I didn't go to the opening night, as far as I've read the reviews, etc., I feel like it's a film that also kind of, the main character is also finding their sense of self through that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And you play, obviously, I think you play the protagonist, right? So how did you go about directing yourself, so to speak?
Okay, so that was not as difficult as I thought it would be. Okay. I was very apprehensive. I was very scared. Of course, I didn't share that with anyone because you have to appear strong and confident and all of that. And I think I did spend about a month just thinking about it. I needed a plan of action, that this is how I'm going to go about it. And I needed to decide at that point, am I doing this? If I do this, then I have to be sure. Otherwise, let me just cast someone else. It's not like the thought did not cross my mind. It did. But due to a lot of reasons, I finally decided to play the part myself. The easy thing is, because I've been acting for a while, I guess I was very well prepared, and when you know the script inside out, a lot of times when you're an actor, you're trying to discuss with the director, and it's almost like you're trying to read somebody else's mind and to understand what that other person's vision is, what they want to put out there, what the character is. And here, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to read somebody else's mind. So, it was all internal. So I don't think that part was as difficult as I anticipated.
That's really interesting. But I think also it does make sense because you're kind of almost having an internal conversation with yourself, I guess, right? So just to kind of recap, so your character is actually playing someone who gets married to someone outside of your country kind of thing, right? Yeah. And then you figure out that the person is a whole load of lies. and then you have not a very great relationship with the mother-in-law, and then you eventually kind of bloom, I guess, right? Because I've not seen the film. Is that the right take?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Amazing. So I think it's one of those films that I think quite a lot of us would hold close to heart, because I'm from a generation when my parents moved over and they've obviously had to find their place in this country, etc. So kind of the emotions that go along with that, did you take any of that from personal experience?
Oh, absolutely. I often say that I'm quite a private person. I don't share as much. I'm not the most talkative person in the world, and most of the time I try to share as little as possible with people, unless it's obviously friends and family and all that. But it's a very strange feeling, because when people are watching the film, I almost feel like I'm bearing myself out there. After the film, I kind of wonder what's left. I don't think I'm a private person anymore. And even if I don't talk to anyone, I kind of feel like I'm out there. Because, and I think it happens when it's your first film, you go internal. I didn't have to do any research. I would have done research if it was something that was external, if it's something that I was learning about or discovering. But here it's a collection of my experiences. I think Minimum sort of has my experiences, my gaze, my learnings, my understanding of our community, what we deal with, what we realize, what we don't realize. So it has so much of that. And also, I guess the treatment is also very, it has my DNA. I keep saying that because when I watched the film, the strange thing is that filmmaking is not an individual journey, right? There are so many voices, so many people. You're not doing this alone. There are a lot of people who work very hard as you, to make it happen, to make it come to life. Yet when I watch the film, I can see the contribution of every single person, and yet I can see, my DNA in it.
That's so nice.
So, yeah, I guess it has a lot of me.
That's so nice. But do you think in the making of the film, obviously, as we discussed before we started the episode, you are marking your 10th year in the industry this year. So congratulations for that, for one.
Thank you.
So I was going to say that obviously whenever I've interviewed a director, I've always asked them, and I'm going to ask you the same question, what kind of journey did it take you on personally? Because this is different because you've also acted in it. But was there something that you ended up learning about yourself in the process of making the film or acting in it?
Oh, yes. Hell yeah. Yes, I really feel like it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this was transformational. I don't feel like the same person anymore.
Wow. Okay.
And I think maybe, I don't want to talk about everyone out there making films, but I do think that when you make a film, it changes you. And the first thing that you find out is what you're made of.
Right.
Because you're going to face so many challenges that you don't anticipate. I spent, from the time I wrote Minimum to the time I reached on a set, it took me 4 years.
Wow.
Right? And you would think that in those 4 years, and I did think about it day in, day out, I did prepare a lot. I knew somewhere at the back of my head that I wanted to direct this. I felt like I needed to direct this because it is very personal at the end of the day. And I knew that it would be tough. Luckily, I always knew, even when I came into this industry, I knew it would be difficult. The same way when I decided to direct, I knew it would be difficult. But having said that, I think I really myself did not know what I was made of. And I think at the end of this journey, I looked back and I felt like, oh, wow, you can handle this much. I did not know. You look at yourself with a little bit of objectivity. And yeah, I think you really find out how strong you are, how much you can take, and how quickly you can adapt and learn.
I think that is something that, as women, I think in any culture, I think women find that difficult, to find that kind of keep finding that voice, I guess. Keep kind of advocating for yourself, because we are always advocating for other people, our friends, our relatives, our mothers, our aunts. We advocate for everyone, I think, but we find that difficult doing that for ourselves. So I think that what you've just said, and I saw a clip of yours actually that someone else had put from the red carpet of UCAF, where you are with Sheila Ditya from Platoon One. And he said there was only so many times I could say no to you, right? So I'm assuming, I didn't see the first bit. I think it was you. I think you were asking for a meeting. Is that correct? And
yes.
He obviously was kept saying, I'm busy, and then it happened.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So what made you not give up at that point?
That's the strangest part. And I take a lot of pride in saying the fact that I chased him. And there's a reason for that, because that's very, very unlike me.
Okay.
I'm usually the kind of person, if you don't respond to me, I will not, disturb you. I'm always scared to disturb someone or to bother someone or to impose. So it's very unlike me to chase someone. Chase is, it's probably not the best choice of word, because I was still respectful. I would wait. I had this thing in my head that I'll wait for 3 weeks. I won't message too often. So there's a difference between chasing and harassing someone
absolutely.
and bothering someone. So I was very cognizant of that. But having said that, I needed to get out of my comfort zone. I knew that. I had to put my pride or this fake idea of pride aside. And I'll tell you, I had a very clear thought. I thought, I'll get a film made or I'll get a no, but there's nothing in between. If he wants to say no to me, I need him to say no.
And he wasn't saying that, right?
And he wasn't saying that.
Okay.
The thing is, he kept saying, yes, we'll do it. And maybe he was hoping that I would get the message and that I would understand that the no was implied. But for me, implied was not good enough. I needed those words. I needed the person to say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And then I would have moved on. Yeah. Then I would have, started to maybe go somewhere else or do something else or whatever it was. But I wanted that no. I was very determined to get this or that.
So what made you do that if you're not that kind of person? What made you keep going?
Because I realized that, firstly, I think I considered it to be a bit of a personality flaw. Because I think pride is not about, it's not about that. I think pride is bigger than that. It's not about thinking that, oh, this person did not respond to me. How, everybody is busy. Everybody is struggling. Everybody's fighting a battle, nothing about. Absolutely. So I don't know why. Sometimes people might not respond to you because they're overwhelmed, because they're busy, because they forget. It happens to me nowadays.
Yeah, I think it happens to all of us, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, and it's nothing personal. Most of the time, it's just that the other person is preoccupied, busy, caught up with life. And there are so many reasons. I think we give ourselves too much importance. And I did not want to do that. And I think my number one priority is I want to get this film made. Mm-hmm. What do I need to do?
Okay.
So I guess that was my approach, because I knew that I needed to push myself. I needed to push my boundaries, because if I just sit around and wait and think that things are going to happen on their own, that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. I think it is. You're absolutely right. If we don't take some sort of action to begin the chain of action, if you like, we can't blame anyone else either, right? For not getting anywhere or not pursuing something. We have to push ourselves. So I totally understand that. Just want to kind of do a little bit of a curveball, if you like. Yeah. So you've been in the industry for 10 years and you said obviously after 10 years you're still saying you weren't that kind of person. But obviously it still took you 2 years to get from conception, I guess, to making minimum, which absolutely is about not accepting the bare minimum in life, which I love that concept. So in the 10 years that you've been in the industry, have you ever found that you'd had to push, maybe not until that level, but have you ever found that you'd had to push for something which maybe wasn't in you, but you still pushed for it?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think I had to push all the time.
Okay.
Simply because I think, there is for some people who are maybe who find it easier to approach other people, to be vocal about what they want, I think it's slightly easier. Again, that's not who I am. I find it very difficult to ask for things. I find it very difficult, like I said, to push. So I do feel like I needed to change a lot of things about myself, but more than changing myself, I needed to change my perception, because if you don't change your perception, you're just forcing yourself, and that becomes evident. That's the first thing. But the second thing is also that when the things that you change, what you choose to change is also very important. So that was a very deliberate choice. There are certain things I realized were not aligned with who I was. So I decided to leave those things aside and to focus on the things to, cater to my strengths. I cannot be everything.
Yeah.
If I cannot be an extrovert, if I cannot be, let's say, if my Instagram game is not the greatest, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Not everybody has to do the same thing. So I decided to focus on what my strengths were. I knew that I could write. I knew that no matter what I do, maybe my Instagram game will always be on the weaker side. I can improve, I can work on it, but I'd rather work on something that I know I can be good at and that is aligned with who I am and that gives me that kind of satisfaction. And I think writing was one of those things. I felt like, yes, this I can do. This is something that I need to focus on. So it's very important to channelize your energy in a direction that's aligned with who you are. So yes, there is a lot of change. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of things that I'm flexible that way. I'm open to change. I want to change. I want to improve. But at the same time, I think it's also important to understand who you are as a person and then to channelize all that energy and all that desire to learn in the right direction.
That's so interesting because as far as I know, the industry can be very rat race in any industry really, but particularly in entertainment is very rat racy. And you kind of, it's like you say with social media, we kind of do have this, maybe not so much in our generation, but definitely the generations after us who have only seen social media. They think that it's okay to compare yourself and it's okay to, oh, that person has this, I want that. But they don't think that person has worked for like a year or something to get to that point.
Yeah.
So when did you know that you weren't with something that was aligning to you? Like how far into your entertainment career did you think, this isn't really working for me, I want to focus on writing? Was it early?
So I had a different outlook. It's not that I realized that late that I wanted to write. I started to take it seriously very late. But I was writing from the age of 19.
Oh.
So I knew that this is something that I'm interested in. I knew that I wanted to do this. But I think maybe there was a certain point in time when I thought, okay, let me just establish myself a little bit. Let me just reach somewhere and then maybe I can write. But, the bottom line is I wasn't happy because when you start from scratch, you don't really know, you don't always have clarity about what you want. So I think there was a point when I was working, I was on a set, I was acting, and I was still not happy. I was not satisfied, I was not content. And I realized it's not just about, I'm not happy in the rat race. You mentioned the rat race. It's not for me. If the rat race is on, is in the right, I'll take the left.
Okay.
I don't. It doesn't suit me. And if it doesn't suit me, if it doesn't make me happy, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. I decided to do this when it was very difficult. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. I chose to do this because it felt like my calling. I don't know, we don't talk about the idea of calling a lot, but I felt a very strong sense of this is my calling.
Oh, wow.
This is what I'm supposed to do. This is who I am, and I felt that at a very early age. Um, so I guess for me the path became very clear, and there was a very specific point in time when I felt like this is not working for me. So that's why I needed to reevaluate my priorities, what I wanted to do, what I want from life, what I want from this career. Um, and it wasn't just to be on a set and for the sake of, clicking a picture on a set and saying, "Hey, I'm working. I'm a working actress." That's not. That was beneath my minimum.
Oh, fair enough. That's a lovely way of putting it. No, that's so interesting, because I find that takes a lot of strength of character as well, to know that, okay, you know what, I'm here, I'm fairly successful, I'm, maybe relatively enjoying being on a set, but that it's not for you, and you want to do a pivot in the same industry, but a pivot nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, because obviously in the 10 years that you've been acting, or in the 10 years you've been in the industry, you've obviously brush shoulders with a lot of influential people, or people who are artistically kind of known, and you've had some of them in your film, actually. Nasiruddin Shah, Geetanjali Kulkarni. Oh my god, like when I look at those names, I'm like, I love every performance of theirs. Like anything I watch them in,
Yeah.
I'm in love with their character, because of their performance.
Yeah.
So directing them, going from that to then directing them, how did that make you feel? Like, were you nervous at all, and how did you overcome that, if you were?
Strangely, I wasn't that nervous.
Okay.
For different reasons. I'll tell you for Nasir sir first. I had worked with him, and he is the kindest person on this planet, and I mean it. I have a way of being evasive and not mentioning things if I don't mean it.
Yeah.
So I mean every word. He's the kindest person on this planet. He's the kindest person I've come across. How can you be intimidated by kindness? I'm not. I'm intimidated by people who throw their weight around, who are badly behaved. I don't know how to be around those people. But when you see an artist who's all there, who brings his best foot forward, he comes for a day, and the whole atmosphere was different. And he's always been so nice to me. He's always been so kind to me. I wasn't intimidated by that. That really makes me comfortable. It makes me feel at ease. And I think every single actor did come with that intention of putting their best foot forward and trying their best and giving it their all. That makes it easy. Yes, there are times when, because you're new and people haven't seen your work, so they are sort of trying to gauge you and see, does she know what she's doing? That does happen, but that's okay. Why wouldn't they? They've been around for a while.
Exactly.
They want to know if you know your job, if you know what you're doing. And I think that's all right. I don't have a problem with people testing you as long as they're putting their best foot forward.
Interesting. So you also, in your film, you also have, just to mention, you've got Sabah Azad,
Yes.
Namit Das. These are all very great actors, and I'm kind of waiting to see your film because I'm so unhappy that I couldn't see the film. But just as a product, when you see it on screen and when you've got the actors with you, and you said you kind of forgot that this is a film I need to release, and this is maybe you were just taking in the experience of directing. I don't know. Maybe you were just engrossed in that. Yeah. But when you're seeing it on screen as your first film, and obviously you've had this 4-year journey, you've been writing, as you said, since you were 19. How is that feel? I'm just trying to imagine how you would have felt. How did you feel thinking, oh, now it's actually there and there are people there watching it? You were there with the reactions, but how did you personally feel?
I don't know. That's the truth. I don't know, because I think I was so caught up in little things.
Okay.
We had to finish the film before sending it, and I was constantly worried if everything was okay, if, if the film had reached them, if it was, if the sound was fine, if the subtitles were fine. So I had so many things in my mind that I should have been nervous. I should have been worried about how people are going to receive the film
Yeah.
and how they will react to it. But I didn't have the time to think about that.
Oh,
And
wow.
maybe that's a good thing.
Probably.
Because I might have psyched myself up for, no reason, because it was received really beautifully. Everything was truly like a dream. But I think it hit me after a couple of days. To be honest, that day I was very sleep deprived.
Oh, God.
Extremely
Never a good
sleep
day.
deprived. There are moments when I didn't know what I was saying. I was very tired, but having said that, I knew that it was going to hit me a few days later. When it's that big, when it's something that you anticipate so much, I think in that moment, it's very difficult to take it in and to
Yeah.
absorb it and to realize what's happening. So I think after a couple of days, I started to feel like, oh, wow, people saw the film and they liked the film and they loved the film. And I was replaying the reactions and, what people were saying afterwards. And it's very, sometimes it feels extremely ironic because I remember people asking what the film is about. And even I mentioned it before the movie started. I said that it has a lot of it has a lot of different elements, right? A lot of themes, but one of the major things is that it's about people who probably are not seen, heard, or understood. And yet, after people watched the film, like I said, I felt like I was bearing myself, and I felt understood. I felt like even though I didn't talk to every single person who was there, I kind of felt like there was this connect. Because when people watch your film and it's something that's truly coming from a personal space and place, and if people receive it in that way, you feel like there is some connection there with the person who's watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely felt that when I've seen films, and I've felt like I've understood the person who's made it a lot more. So yeah, I absolutely understand that. So this concept that you have at the kind of the crux of the story, which is what I mentioned, trying to not only expect the bare minimum and not get used to that line at the bottom. I think as a culture, we kind of do that a lot. And in the Asian culture, I'm not going to just sideline women because I feel like we do that as a whole culture. We always expect the bare minimum of people, or we sometimes give the bare minimum because we think it's okay to just give that minimum amount of whatever it is.
Yeah.
But what made you put that at the crux of the story? As you said, there are so many themes, but what was the reason for that particular part of that character that you wanted to include that for?
The minimum,
Yeah.
the idea of the bare minimum. Because I think I observed that a lot around me, and especially because it's the story is about immigrants.
Yeah.
Right? And I think as immigrants, your first and sometimes only concern is survival.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen because you sacrifice so much. You leave your entire existence behind. Your family, your friends, the comfort. Life in India or in South Asia can be very comfortable to a certain extent. It depends, on your background, where you come from, and all of that. But an immigrant's journey is not easy. No. And here, I also feel like immigrants are almost like a different, it's like a different microcosm. They have a different identity. They have a different mentality. There is something that happens when you go to a different country. So I do feel like sometimes as immigrants, you get so engrossed in that idea of, I want to make a better life for myself. I need to earn money. Some people have to send money back home. You long for a sense of belonging, right? And where do you belong? especially for a first generation, you're not fully integrated. But at the same time, I've noticed that a lot. When you go back to your country, you also feel like things have moved on. People have changed. They're not, the way I remember them. So then what happens is that you feel like I need one place where I feel like I belong. And in that desperation, projection becomes a big part of it. That is my experience. I don't know if you'll feel the same way.
I do agree. I absolutely agree, because a lot of my family are obviously from Africa and have come to the UK. I do agree with a lot of those themes, but I think it is a sense of finding your identity. And sometimes you don't find that. You remain the split identity. And I think that is the bottom line of our podcast, actually, that trying to explore the themes that come with a split identity, which is why I thought it was really interesting that your film was looking at that. As I said, I'm waiting to see it. Absolutely waiting to see it. So I just wanted to ask you, actually, you're 10 years in. So what do you have an idea of where you want to go after Minimum?
I have been writing.
Amazing.
So I have a script. So the next step for me would be to make that film.
Okay. Do you think, obviously, like I said, I think every film is a journey for a filmmaker. Do you think that you've taken a lot of what you have learnt during the making of Minimum into your next project? Or just some of it?
I guess there is a lot of learning that I need to implement when I'm making the next film. But in the writing process, I don't think that's where the change will be seen. Of course, I have been a lot more meticulous about the writing, because when it comes to Minimum, I had a bound script, but that it changed a lot along the way. But I also think that that's part of the journey. And you have to be flexible and you have to be open, because you never know where a genius idea might come from. And you have to be open to that. You have to have that humility. A lot of people say that as a director, you have to know what you want. And I agree. While I agree with that, I also feel like you need to be open and understand that, that there are a lot of people around you. Just keep your ears and your mind open to receive a little bit of the genius that's out there.
The amazing geniuses that are out there, especially in the entertainment industry. So just, again, curveballing it again. In the time that you've been a filmmaker, and as you say, you are that kind of person who's open to receiving stuff, or like you don't know when something could happen or opportunity could come your way, etc. Is there anything that you do? Because I would assume that in any kind of career anyone is in, there is an impact to mental health on some days, if not every day, at some point. I feel like in the entertainment industry, that is something that, especially in India, is not talked about so much as maybe in the UK, where we talk about it, I feel like, a lot, especially after COVID. Yeah. I think the conversation has opened up after COVID in India as well. But personally for you, how important is it for you to kind of look after your mental health, even in your day-to-day, even when you are writing, if you have a bad day, or, whatever it might be? Is there anything you specifically do to kind of improve your mental health on a daily, monthly, weekly, any basis?
Yes, I do. I think it's central. It's important. And I think we don't give it enough importance, even when we talk about it.
Yeah,
I don't think we're still... It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually implement it in your day-to-day life. And I don't think that mental health is like this prize that you can hold in your hand, and once it's acquired, it's there.
Yeah, it's absolutely not.
It doesn't work that way. It's work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
You need to feed yourself every day. If you need to exercise to be, in shape and healthy and feel healthy, it's the same for mental health. It's not something that's acquired. It's something that you work towards every single day. And I think it's also a journey to figure out what works for you.
Yes.
Because I don't think it's the same for every single person.
Absolutely not.
What works for you might not work for me, and vice versa.
Exactly.
So it's also... sometimes I feel like we live in a world where it's very difficult to hear your own voice. And what I mean is really to be in touch with yourself. And as a creative person, I think that is of the utmost importance, to be in touch with yourself, to constantly go back to who you are, what your priorities are, because it's very easy to get swayed by these ideas that are out there. But I think for me, mental health is about finding yourself every single day, taking care of yourself, being aware of what you're feeling, because I think it happens so often that people only take care of themselves when they are, at the end of the rope.
Yeah, burnout stage usually.
Exactly, exactly. That's it's good if you do it then, but it takes daily practice.
It's a cliff edge, isn't it? If you do it then, though.
Yeah.
Because it can go either way. You can start looking after yourself at that stage and not be successful and still kind of go off the cliff. But sometimes it works. Sometimes you can bring yourself back.
Yeah.
So is there anything you specifically do for yourself?
For me, the morning is very important. That's the time that I reserve for myself. I don't meditate exactly, but I just sit quietly and I try to be aware of what I'm feeling. And I try to remind myself constantly when you start to get anxious. I also try to look at things from a broader perspective, because I think at least it helps me to just kind of take a step back and realize whether what I'm stressing about or what I'm anxious about, is it really that important? Is it really crucial? Am I going to die if this because no, but the truth is that we give a lot of things so much importance.
Yeah.
Is it really worth getting so worked up about? Most of the time it's not.
No, it isn't. You're so right.
So I think that's the first step. What's the worst thing that can happen? Like today, I have this thing about punctuality, and I was getting stressed about reaching late.
Okay.
That's the truth.
I do that. I do the same thing. So I hear you.
And then I was really like, what is the worst thing that can happen if I reach late? I can't control it. So we get stressed about these little things. Even while making the movie, during the casting process, or I was very worried about the time, whether we would be able to, every single day, whether we would be able to finish the day successfully, whether we would be able to do everything we had planned. After a point, I was like, what I can't control, I'm not going to think about. It's as simple as that. If it's not in my control, it is a waste of my time.
That's so nice that you can control yourself as well, to do that kind of conditional. This is not going to help me. This is not helping me to stress about. There is really nothing to stress. Because I think we do stress about. You're right. We do stress about really small things, and they kind of end up being overwhelming, because I think one goes on top of the other, and then you just end up spiraling sometimes as well. I totally get that. But I think that takes a training of the mind as well, because as I'm listening to you talking, absolutely, you have to train your mind to not get stressed about stuff like that. So I think, has that taken any practice for you? It sounds like it probably has at some point.
Oh, definitely. The last thing I want to do is to make it sound easy, or to make it sound like, oh yes, one day I decided to not stress and the next day I was not stressing.
If
only, exactly. No, it takes patience. It takes practice. Like I said, it's a daily thing.
Yeah.
You cannot neglect that. We don't forget to eat. We don't forget to sleep. Then this is also daily practice. It's about reminding yourself. Every single time I feel stressed or I feel anxious and I feel overwhelmed, I remind myself, is this worth it? And sometimes I forget. And then, I spiral more and more and more. And then I reach that point where I'm like, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
But then you still have to go back to reminding yourself, is this worth it?
Yeah, it's very true. So again, like I was going to say, in the entertainment industry, there is a thing about showing up, right? You have to show up, you have to show face, you have to be almost prim and proper, especially when you're in front of the audience, the media, your co-stars, anyone. What happens for you personally if you wake up and you feel like, I can't be bothered with this today. I need a duvet day. I need some ice cream. Do you have days like that? And how do you overcome those feelings? Because I feel like we all have days like that. But in the entertainment industry, I feel like there's an added pressure.
So let me understand your question. Are you talking about the feeling, the mental feeling of not wanting to show up? Or is it...
Essentially, you might have, I don't know, you might not be feeling great. You just need a day to yourself kind of thing.
Oh, but I don't really have that problem in the sense that I get enough days to myself. And I also think that when external things can sometimes change your energy. So a lot of it happens to me very often, even I'm ashamed to say that, but even when meeting friends, sometimes I feel like it's not that I don't want to, but there is a bit of a resistance in my body because it's change, right?
Yeah.
So we are designed to resist change. I might be feeling very low and then I don't feel like meeting anyone. But then when I go and meet that person changes my energy. And sometimes it's outside in as well.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'll pretend for 5 minutes to be all giggles and sunshine, but then I start to feel that way.
Yeah.
So if you are open to letting, other people change your energy, that happens as well. And it can help you and you can go back home feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a nice way of thinking of it. Outside in.
Yes.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So do you actually have anything where, in terms of mental health, but also otherwise in your career or maybe even when you're making your next film or when you were making Minimum, is there anything that you have which you think this is a non-negotiable? I'm not going to kind of sway from this thing that I want. And obviously you did that already by, which you said you were constantly kind of chasing, in inverted commas, the Shiladitya from Platoon 1. But is there anything else where you feel like, this is a non-negotiable for my mental health, or this is a non-negotiable for the quality of my film, or something like that? Is there anything you have like that where you absolutely do not negotiate at all?
I think it changes.
Okay.
Because sometimes certain things feel like non-negotiables and then you push your boundaries, right? When you're making a film, I think it's very, very difficult to prioritize yourself because you are working towards something that feels bigger than yourself. So during the making of Minimum, and I'm not going to address whether it's right or wrong, but I think sometimes I have prioritized the film over myself. And I don't know if I would do it the same way. Of course, that's where you implement the learnings, right? So I have learned a lot of things, and maybe in my next film, it will be different. Maybe I'll be able to prioritize certain things. But having said that, I think it's very important to have certain things. Of course, I have my non-negotiables, and I think I have maintained some of them even during Minimum. But creatively speaking, I've learned to be flexible and to understand and to, sometimes it's also important to take feedback, but to make it your own.
Yeah.
So you mold it, but you still keep your voice. So I guess the one thing that I have tried to uphold is it will be my voice. I'll take what you say, but it will be
ultimately
my voice.
Yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because I feel like that's a very good way of taking constructive feedback as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is, absolutely. Thank you. That's a really nice thought. Okay, I'm going to end with some this or that questions, which we usually have in our episodes. So I'm going to include it in the bonus episode as well. So some of them are related to you personally, and some of them are just related to nothing in particular.
Okay.
So are you ready?
I am ready.
Amazing. So we have 6 in total. Okay. Do you prefer to be a passenger or a driver?
Driver.
Any reason?
I guess it's the desire for control.
I can totally understand. In front of the camera or behind the camera?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Right now, behind.
Okay. That's interesting. I was wondering what your answer would be for that.
Even I wasn't sure what I was going to say.
Okay, that's interesting. Right now, behind. Okay. India or Belgium?
India.
Ah, फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Homebody or outdoorsy person?
Homebody.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't expect you to say that. I thought you would say you're an outdoors person. Okay. Stargazing or sunbathing?
Stargazing.
I'm with you on that. I'll give you a high five virtually. Okay, so this is the final one. Being in the creative arts with or without social media?
Without. I wish I could.
Really? Oh, God. I'll add you to the list. I think a lot of our guests have said that about social media. I think it is a blur. It sometimes ends up being a blur to your own, like you say, your own voice.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. I'm going to end there. Thank you so much, Rumana, for joining me. I was going to say us, but me on Voice It Out podcast. It's been lovely to have you. One day, hopefully, I will get to see Minimum, and then I will look back on this conversation. It might make a lot more sense to me, even though it was a lovely conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish you well with that film and with your forthcoming projects. And yes, is there anything else you want to say?
No, thank you for having me. It was a delightful conversation. I really had fun. I was very comfortable. So this was great. It didn't feel like an interview. It felt just like a regular, interesting conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Voice It Out podcast, get ready for this bonus episode. And we don't want to keep it in. We want to voice it out. Bye.